Hi, thanks for joining us. This is Island Girl Creative Studio online tutorials. I'm going to be painting the hydrangeas behind the fence and show you how to do it step by step. If you have paints and canvas at home and want to follow along, welcome. And if you need a kit, you can always come back to this video after you've purchased your kit from islandgirlcreativestudio.com. You hit the shop button, you'll receive a 16 by 20 canvas with the paints that you need and the brushes, and then you can follow along step by step with this tutorial. So we're going to get started here. With my kit, you're going to receive 6 different brushes, and with those brushes, we don't always use every single one of them for every project, but they're good to have just in case you have some other things you want to paint, such as rocks. I like to remind you of that because we do rock painting too. It's fun. All right, so what we want to do is we want to mix up the yellow and the white. That's going to be our first step. We're going to paint right behind that fence on the right-hand side. So mix it up with your paintbrush to get a nice smooth color. Let's see here. And then we're going to use our sponge brush to apply it just to get that nice color on there. So we've got this really light yellow color, and we're just going to apply it really lightly about 1/3 of the way down the canvas. Also going around the edges to coordinate with that. Right over everything. You'll still be able to see all of the pre-designed sketch on there because it's so light it doesn't even cover that. But we're just getting it so that there's some light on the canvas in that corner. Mine is a little more of a yellowy color. That one's a little more of a baby yellow. We've got a little bit brighter color on this canvas. That's okay. Everybody's will be different. You're all gonna paint it differently. It's all gonna look slightly different. So pull it, like I said, about 1/3 of a way through that canvas. Then when you're done with that, we're gonna mix up the white and green. So create a very light green mixture. And we're just gonna peekaboo some of it out. See, I'm using that same paintbrush. I mixed up the yellow, and it's okay to get a little bit of yellow in there. So next up, we just want to put a little bit of that green and just kind of smear it in. You can use your whatever paint was on the paintbrush that you mixed, and then use that sponge brush. Just kind of lightly pull that green color in a little bit further and blend it out into that yellow. Just a little bit like this. We just want to see some of that green peeking out. A little bit over here, a little bit over there. And I didn't even clean the sponge brush. I'm literally just wiping some of that green color right into there. Right on top. There we go. Beautiful. Just a little bit of greenery behind the bush that we're about to create here. All right. So once you've got that in place, then we have another green that has a little bit of black in it, and we're going to mix that completely up and get kind of a darker green. It should be more of like a shadowy green. And that one we want to paint out and around the rest of the canvas. So you don't have to go across the wood because we're going to paint that next and we don't want it to be all covered in colors. But what I do suggest is you go around the blooms because we don't want to darken them up too much. They're going to be very bright blue. See how bright and pretty they are? So we can go right up to the edge of those blooms. And I'm using this paintbrush. It's the round paintbrush. And I'm literally just going back and forth with it. If you notice, it's creating this really weird texture. And that's kind of cool because it's a bush. So it's a little bit, pokey. It's got things growing in different directions. It's behind everything that we're about to paint coming forward. So it can be a little bit disheveled. And then pull that over a majority of the green that we just did. Like I said, you don't have to paint on top of the wood because we are going to paint that a different color. And if you can go around the leaves and around some of those blooms, it'll be easier for you to get the color to stay on those particular places. Remember, we always play a game of let's see what's dry, and that's half of the battle of these paintings is just getting it to be dry enough to move on to the next step. So I'm going to try to walk you through how to get it dry without having to wait too long. So see, it's just kind of chunky. We're just pulling it out. We're making this bushy looking colors in the background. These are just the background colors. Now, I'm going to also remind you, don't paint as fast as I do. Just try to focus on those brush strokes and getting that beautiful color onto the canvas. Don't worry about how long it takes you. I'm trying to go a little quicker just so this video isn't so long. But you, through the magic of internet, can pause the video. So that way you have time to catch up and actually do each step with a little more care. I'm going quickly. I have painted it before, clearly, so I know what's coming up next and kind of how to achieve what I'm about to do. But as you're learning and walking through this, definitely take your time. And I'm just letting that paint kind of blend off, letting some of that green, light green show through and a little bit of that yellow and everything. So we're creating this kind of mess on the canvas for the bush, just to be all bushy. And don't forget to go around the outside. You can actually use your sponge brush to do that if you want to. It might be a little bit easier to get around the edges with this color if you use your sponge brush. And I didn't clean it. What I just do is if you dip it, the last color that's on the very top is what you'll be able to paint with unless you squish it. If you squish it, then the colors that you were using will magically reappear. They'll just come right out and say, oh, it's time to party. And also try to match up the color on the canvas around the corner with the color that we're putting onto the front of it. So like this is going to be a bloom, this is going to be the fence. So just wrap the color that you're painting with around those edges. Right, and try not to forget any of these little pieces here because we just definitely want that green to show between. And now I'm starting to use my sponge brush, which you're welcome to use if you want to, if you feel comfortable. I'm using just the edge of it as opposed to the full on or the flat part of it. But I'm going to switch back to that paintbrush just so it's not confusing for you. And again, I'm going over slightly into the fence and slightly into the blooms so that way that color is behind both of them when we paint them. Just slightly. We don't want to overdo it. That bush is behind all of this. Texture is good. Lines in the paint is good. We want to see all that fun, interesting pull around all the blooms and those little leaves that are sticking out. All right. Almost there. Again, pause and just take your time placing all these beautiful things on here. Maybe a little bit out here around this one. It's raining today, so I've got a sweatshirt on. It's a little bit cooler out there. But it's good for all the gardens that we all just planted. They're getting lots of water now. If you see any other places that you kind of want to darken up a little bit, feel free to do that. Just kind of going back over a few of them that when I mixed up the paint, it wasn't mixed up completely, so some of it's a little darker and some of it's a little lighter, which is actually okay too. But I'm just wanting to kind of pull some brush strokes through all of this. Yeah, looks good. My hydrangeas are growing right now, but I had a huge blackberry bush in it. Like, I'm talking, like, the stalk that was coming out of it was like, I don't know, like 2 inches around. It's huge. And then it had like, its roots were going out all over, and I was pulling that out the other day, trying to let it, because it's taking the water away from the hydrangea bush, so, and it's kind of squished into a corner. But yeah, so I got bit up a little bit by a sharp bush. Hurts my wrist, but totally worth it. I'm gonna save my hydrangeas. All right, I'm digging it. Looks good. Well, it looks like a mess right now, but it's appropriately messy. That's what we want. So, okay, so what we're gonna do next is we're gonna let that background dry so we don't do any smearing. And we're gonna work on the fence. So the fence is going to be, you're gonna have another cup of brown and white. And we're gonna mix it all the way up so we can get a nice light beigey color. And we're just gonna paint in the whole fence. So we're just gonna give it one nice coating of that beigey color. And again, if you notice, oh wait, hold up. We're gonna use the flat straight brush. So there's gonna be one with an angle on it, and there's gonna be a flat one. You use the flat one, and it's straight one with flat brush. So, and we're gonna go across the canvas, so the wood, like the wood grain would be long and skinny like that. So we're gonna paint it in the same direction and pull back and forth, kind of like we were just doing with the bush. And this is gonna create the texture on the wood. So make sure to paint right up to all the lines. We don't wanna see any of the lines. And keep in mind that we're gonna paint each piece individually, just like always, to keep it so that they don't lose what it is. So this is a piece of wood that goes through the post. So when we paint the post, we're gonna paint this up and down, and we're painting this one nice and long and across the canvas. Now I would suggest going around the leaves that are hanging over the wood fence. I just think it'll be better for later. We won't have to cover it up with as much paint. It won't have a different look than the other leaves that don't have the brown behind it, or the beige. I guess it's beige. Keep in mind this is a weathered old fence, so it's okay if it's a little bit wonky, like there's a little bit of a, like I went whoop down there. It's okay. It's old wood. It's been through a lot. And it is just beautiful. Now, keep in mind that the paint could still be wet down below on that green. Like I just hit some wet paint, and that's okay because we're gonna put some colors into the wood. We just don't want to pull too much of that green into the wood. It doesn't, that's not the color that we're looking for. Again, take your time with this. You don't have to paint as quickly as me. Just put it on pause. Get your fence post done. Or rail. This is the rail, this is the post. So just get this one done first, and then we'll put the post in just a second. So once you've got this completely painted in, there's a bucket with just a little bit of brown in it, and you're just going to go ahead and dab that dirty brush, and then you're going to smear some of that paint onto that piece of wood. Now keep in mind that there is the top, so this little lip is the top. We're going to lighten that up, so try to just go right up to that line and then just kind of lightly brush. I'm doing it on the skinny side of the brush, so it's flat. There's a larger side and a skinnier side, and we're just doing it on that skinny side, and we're lightly, I kind of lightly hit it and then pull it. Lightly hit it and then pull it. and randomly here and there make it darker and lighter. And this is gonna give that more weathered look too. So we're just gonna pull some of that color back and forth across the wood. Long pulls of paint like this. And maybe you have a knot in your wood, that's okay too. Like you could have a big old, you could make like a round space right there. There's a knot in the wood, right? And we're just trying to blend it. While that paint is still almost wet, it can be a little bit dry, but it does better when it's wet. So it's giving that weathered wood look. So pretty, look how pretty. A little bit darker, a little lighter, some blend, some actual just brown paint just sitting right on top right there. Now if you end up getting too dark or you start to feel like you're getting it too dark, grab some of the original color and just put it right on top. It's okay. And I forgot to do a round to match it up, so I'm just gonna do that real fast and try to blend it out here. And then I'm sure on this side, the same thing going on. Sorry, it's hard to see around that from this side. Different pulls of paint. Oh, I got rid of my knot. That's okay. We don't need that. It didn't exist. It's fine. All right. Now, if you notice, there's a little bit of a darkness over there. I actually used a tiny bit of black paint too, but you want to do it very sparingly. Like I'm talking just a tiny dab, just tiny little dab, tiny, 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 tiny on the edge, and literally lightly pull, lightly touch, lightly blend. We don't want to turn that wood too dark. We want it to be very, very light. There we go. Just a few pulls in there. So it gives it a little more of a weathered look too for that, because the darkness is what's making that look like it's been through a few seasons of rain and a few seasons of flowers growing all over it. Now this can go over a tiny bit into the pole because we're going to paint the pole up and down and cover over that. So don't worry about it if you get it into there just a little bit. Skinny pulls, long pulls. Don't forget, this is wood, so there's lots of interesting little pieces of brown through it. Yeah, I like it. Okay, and then just the bottom could be a little bit darker since it's kind of in the shadow. It would be underneath, so just keep a darker line at the very bottom. There you go. Beautiful. Now, while this is still wet, go ahead and touch a tiny bit of the white paint too, so still dirty brush. Just lean it over. Don't get this into the white. Try just to pull it on the side of the cup. And we're just going to do the lip with a little bit of light in there. We want it to be different because it is the top of the wood. There is comes up the side and then a little bit of the top. And by keeping it a little bit lighter, it shows that. There we go. Add some light to the top of that fence. Terrific. Okay, so let's work on the post now. You can kind of just wipe that brush off. We're going to use the same one. Just wipe it off so we can start over fresh with the light color. So the light color is going to be the base, and I'm going to tell you that we're going to go across it on the top because it's round. There's actually a round top that we're going to make an illusion that we can see. So round it off the top and then up and down for the rest of it because we want to get that nice wood look to it. So up and down for the rest of it. Same application like we did with this. We're doing it down here. And if you can do your best to stay out of the leaves, that would be fabulous. This was one of the classes that I had scheduled for in March and wasn't able to get done because all of the classes got canceled. So I'm really glad to get this out to you now. I was sad because this was such a cute painting and just so appropriate for spring. Right down. Beautiful. Oh my gosh. You can use it with the texture in it already. It looks great. So now we're going to grab that brown paint and exactly the same again. We're just going to grab some off the side of the cup and we're going to just pull random slices of that brown on that same dirty brush and make it look weathered. So just keep pulling it down. Long, weathered wood. Okay, stay out of that round area for now because we're going to actually go in a different direction to give that the cap on top. So we're just worrying about weathering up this wood right now. Oh yeah. You gotta stand back sometimes to take a look at what you're doing. I'm up close and it looks different. Ooh, look at that one. That's super dark. All right, so now once you've got a lot of the brown on here and you feel good with that, then you're gonna go and round off the top with that darker brown. And then you're gonna make, I kind of do little dashes to do the other side. You're just gonna make little dashes so it shows that it's cut and it's a little bit rough around the top there. And as you do that, it makes a texture too. And you can kind of pull it down just a little bit like this. Yeah. Now again, we are gonna add a little bit of black to that. But please, just gentle. Just grab a little bit, darken it up. This side of the post is a little bit darker because it gets darker from here and it gets into the light. So just gonna make this side just a tiny scotch bit darker than the rest of it. And then you'll notice that there's a little where the wood goes into the other one. It is darker in there, and that is used with the dark brown and the black. So we're just gonna make a little bit of a mixture kind of. You could do it on the brush or in the cup, however makes you comfortable as far as we want to get that really good color. If you have a plate or a palette that you're using, it's a good time to mix some colors like that. So, ooh, look at that, got a little bit more in there. Dab it across the top too, just kind of fun. Oh my gosh, I could do this for a really long time. It's really fun and I really like the way it looks. Okay, so back to what I was just saying. Take one of the smaller brushes. I'm gonna use the flat straight one, so it's the same as the big one, it's just a littler one, and I'm going to take, like I said, palette, plate, whatever you want, a tiny bit of the black and mix it with a tiny bit of the brown on the side. It's hard to hold in front of the camera. But you're just gonna mix a tiny bit of the brown and the black just like this. Make a really dark color, brownish based. And that's what we're gonna paint in this little, it looks like a train tunnel, like paint in the little train tunnel. Ooh, that's super dark. Okay, so make sure to add a bunch of brown and so it's not, we don't want it to be black. It's not that dark. We want it to be a dark, dark, dark brown. So I'm going to come back with that darker brown color instead of the blacky color. And we're just creating that little space for that piece of wood to sit in. And also there's going to be a little shadow on that piece of wood because it's going into that space. And then down below, it's sitting a little tighter. So we're just going to create like a little place where it sits right there. But yeah. So see how it kind of gives that three-dimensional look. It goes into that post and out the other side. But there isn't a shadow on the other side because you don't see it coming out. But we see from this, the view is like this way, not straight on. So again, you can take that darker brown color, and now that you have this tiny little brush, you can make these itty bitty slicey looking pools of paint. I'm having too much fun with this color. I really like weathering this wood. Love, love, love it. Yeah, put some over here too. Ooh. All right, I'm getting crazy. It's just so pretty. All right, so I'll stop. And the top of it kind of looks a little light to me, so I'm going to put another little layer of that beigey color on the top, just to kind of darken it up a little bit. Give it its roundness. Actually, what if we put, because technically you would see like the rings of the tree, right? Because kind of it's cut up there. So maybe, let's see, I'm going to try something. Ooh, okay. So I just did like, so circular motion. I'll bring it closer to the camera. So I don't know if you can see it or not. I can't tell. I haven't actually watched these on a big computer. I've only watched them on my phone just to make sure everything's okay. And I don't know if you can, what kind of details you can see, but holy smokes, just made it a million times better. So I'm gonna pull this a little closer. So what I did was I put little rings on it to create, like when you cut the top of a tree, you see the rings inside. So I didn't go in a circle, I just went in an oval because we only have this top cut just like that. So you see that? I freaking love it. Wow, it's so awesome. Okay. Good stuff. Maybe I'll round this off too a little bit. Oh my goodness. This painting just keeps getting better and better. All right. So now we have our wood fence in, right? So everything looks good. You could put a little bit of a white highlight on it too if you wanted to. Like, I'm kind of going a little crazy with all the colors, but I just feel like all these little extras just make it pop. Everything just looks a little bit more realistic. Oh yeah, look at that. So just a little bit of white, kind of just sliced in here and there, just a little bit. Just a tiny bit. And try to keep them long and nice. And it's no curving. Don't curve that line that you're pulling. And just maybe I'm going to lighten up the top of the fence a tiny bit more. Oh my goodness, yes. All the yes. Oh, sorry, I bumped the table. Okay, I'm just really excited. All right, so let's move on. Let's just move on. I'm loving it, but I think we're good now. We'll just leave it like that. All right, so the next part we're gonna work on is the leaves. The leaves are gonna go on because the blooms are gonna kind of fluff around all of them. So we wanna make sure we get a good base for those leaves before they start to disappear a little bit. So we're gonna go back to that original green color that was over here, And we're gonna grab a hold of it on the angled brush now. So we've got that flat angled brush and we're just gonna pull a bunch of that paint off. And hopefully your background is dry. Mine is not, but if yours is not, then just take a little break or put a fan on, open a window, and then you'll start to dry quickly. It'll dry very quickly if you have that air movement for it. Now with the leaves, I always start from the pointiest end and then come back down, and I outline them to start with. Then I fill them in on the inside, and then I pull them into their base, because it will create a little bit of texture on the leaf, and it will create those lines, because leaves, some leaves, not all leaves, right? But they grow, they stretch out, they grow out like this. So if you pull that color down to the base and then round it off, voila, there's your leaf. So, and see how this is kind of coming in a little bit? So make sure you go out and over that darker color. We're covering it up. And we might have to do 2 layers of this color, and that's okay, to get it completely covered. But look at how gorgeous that is. Now keep in mind, always look at the example to kind of see what those leaves are doing. So like this one is coming from behind the post, so make sure to go around the post, not over it, and just pull that green on there. And then this one is coming back over here and right up to the post as well. And then it kind of peeks out from behind this big bloom that we're gonna put on there in a moment. So pretty. Right. So if this is a good time to pause too, if you want to take your time painting in all those leaves, reference back the original so that you can see where they're supposed to go. They're kind of here and there and everywhere because they're in that bush. That bushy mess that we made here. Right up against the fence post here. And then I was also going to mention again, I'm not sure if this is your first time doing a video with me or your 100th time, who knows, right? But when I'm painting on an easel, but you don't have to. Normally when I make like that example over there was flat on a table when I painted it. And actually, I'm not gonna lie, it's probably my dining room table because that's where I usually do a lot of my painting is at home.